Chapter 1: The Night They Met. The city lights of New York City flickered like stars as the summer heat clung to the streets. The night of August 26, 1986, seemed like any other, but for 19-year-old Jennifer Levin, it would become a night of terror and confusion, a night that would alter the course of her life forever. Jennifer, a college student with an infectious laugh and a magnetic personality, was spending the evening with friends at a popular nightclub. The music was loud, and the atmosphere was carefree. She didn't know it yet, but her life was about to take an unexpected turn when she crossed paths with Robert Chambers. Robert, also 19, was a young man from a wealthy family. He was well-dressed, attractive, and had a certain charm that seemed to pull people toward him. But underneath that polished exterior, there was something darker. He had a history of trouble, from a strained relationship with his family to run-ins with the law. Despite his privileged upbringing, Robert was far from the golden boy his parents had hoped he would become. That night, he was at the same nightclub, trying to shake off his past and lose himself in the city's pulse. Jennifer and Robert met by chance in the crowded club. They shared a few drinks, exchanged flirtations, and quickly became caught up in the thrill of the night. As the evening wore on, they decided to leave the club together. Jennifer, perhaps feeling a mix of excitement and curiosity, followed Robert as they headed toward Central Park, a place where many people came to escape the noise of the city. Chapter 2: Into the Park. The night air was cool, and the sounds of the city seemed to fade away as they entered Central Park. They walked side by side, making small talk, but as they ventured deeper into the park, the tone shifted. Jennifer, ever the free spirit, didn't mind the quietness of the ramble, a secluded, wooded area known for being a place where couples sought privacy. But Robert's mood seemed to change. There was a tension in the air, a sense that things weren't as carefree as they had seemed just moments ago. They stopped, and for a while, it was just the two of them standing under the shadow of the trees, the only sound the rustle of leaves. Jennifer, playful and lighthearted, tried to make Robert laugh, but his responses were curt and distant. Something was off. She could sense it, but she didn't know how to address it. Robert was charming, but he was also unpredictable. The conversation turned to more intimate topics. Jennifer, perhaps a little tipsy, joked about their differing backgrounds. Robert, on the other hand, became defensive. He started to accuse her of judging him, of not understanding him. What began as an innocent chat slowly morphed into something more uncomfortable. "I don't need your pity," Robert spat, his voice suddenly hard and cold. "You think I'm just some rich kid who gets everything handed to him, but you have no idea." Jennifer laughed, thinking it was just part of the act, but Robert's eyes flashed with something darker. He stepped closer to her, his body tense, like a storm ready to break. "What's wrong with you, Robert?" Jennifer asked, her tone no longer playful. "I've had enough of pretending," he snapped. "Of playing the good little boy, the pretty little picture for everyone else. You want to see the real me?" The shift in his demeanor caught Jennifer off guard. Her gut twisted, and her instincts told her something wasn't right. But it was too late. Chapter 3: The Struggle. The argument escalated quickly. Robert reached out, grabbing Jennifer by the shoulders, his grip tightening. She tried to pull away, her heart racing as she realized the danger she was in. But Robert was stronger, more forceful than she had anticipated. Her laughter died in her throat, replaced by fear. "Stop. Let go of me," she cried, struggling to break free. But Robert didn't let go. His grip on her neck tightened, and his face contorted with rage. Jennifer gasped for breath, her hands clawing at his arms, trying to pry them away. She tried to scream, but no sound escaped. Her vision blurred as the life was choked out of her. Robert's mind was racing, panic, fear, and something else, something darker. He hadn't meant for it to go this far. He hadn't meant to hurt her. But in that moment of desperation, something inside him snapped. He couldn't stop. The pressure on her neck was unrelenting, and Jennifer's struggles grew weaker. After what seemed like an eternity, Jennifer's body went limp in his arms. Robert stood frozen, his breath coming in ragged gasps, his eyes wide with shock and disbelief. He hadn't meant to kill her. But it was too late now. His panic surged. What was he supposed to do? His thoughts raced as he dragged her lifeless body into the bushes, hiding her where no one would find her, at least not yet. He ran, not thinking, just needing to get away. he didn't know what to tell anyone. Didn't know how to explain what had happened. So, he said nothing. Chapter 4: The Discovery. The next morning, two men walking through Central Park stumbled upon Jennifer's body. The discovery sent shockwaves through the city. The police launched a full investigation, and it wasn't long before they turned their attention to Robert Chambers. At first, Robert denied any involvement in Jennifer's death. But the evidence was too strong. The police found him with scratches on his arms, and the timeline of his movements didn't add up. His initial story didn't make sense. Slowly, the truth began to unravel. As the investigation continued, Robert's story shifted. He confessed to being with Jennifer, but he claimed that the killing had been an accident, a result of a struggle that got out of hand. He said he had never meant to hurt her. But how much of his story was the truth? And how much was a cover-up to hide the darkness inside him? The media latched onto the case, calling him the preppy killer because of his background and image as a wealthy, privileged young man. Public opinion was divided. Some felt sympathy for Robert, who seemed like a troubled soul who had made a terrible mistake. Others believed he was simply a cold-blooded killer hiding behind his wealth and status. Chapter 5: The Trial and the Twist. As the trial began in 1987, the defense team pushed for a manslaughter conviction, arguing that Robert had acted in the heat of passion and that Jennifer's death was an accident. The prosecution, however, painted a different picture, one of a deliberate and violent act. But just as the trial was nearing its conclusion, a shocking twist occurred. New evidence surfaced that suggested Robert's initial confession might have been incomplete, that there was more to the story than he had let on. Experts uncovered traces of blood and DNA evidence that didn't fit Robert's story, and whispers began to circulate about the true nature of his relationship with Jennifer. Was it really a crime of passion? Or was Robert's confession a calculated attempt to protect himself? In the end, Robert Chambers pled guilty to first-degree manslaughter and was sentenced to 5 to 15 years in prison. He was released after serving 17 years, but the mystery of what really happened that night would linger for years to come. Chapter 6: Aftermath. For Jennifer Levin's family, the pain of losing her never truly subsided. The question of whether justice had been served remained unresolved. Was Robert's sentence enough? Did his privilege play a role in his eventual release? As for Robert, his life after prison was filled with legal troubles, arrests, and failed attempts to reinvent himself. But no matter where he went, the shadow of that night in Central Park would never leave him. And the true story of what happened between him and Jennifer, whether an accident, a crime of passion, or something even darker, remained locked away in the depths of his mind. The case of the preppy killer would never be just a story of a privileged young man who killed a girl in Central Park. It was a complex tale of lies, manipulation, and hidden truths, one that left more questions than answers, and a legacy of tragedy that would haunt everyone involved for years to come.